Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at what's coming in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I am your host, Tanya Shrum. We are joined today, as usual, by North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Greetings and welcome to the program. It's really nice to be back with y'all.
It's wonderful to have you back, Tanya.
And I hope you're all having a great week.
So far, so good. Nice to get some rain.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's lovely. Feels like Humboldt County again.
When I stepped in the puddle on Monday and my sock was wet all day, it felt very much like Humboldt County.
That's a deep sigh, Jennifer.
It's a deep sigh. You're hearing the tears of all my suede shoes.
Oh,
it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. This is no country for old suede or new suede.
Girl, the truth.
Well, Thad, why don't you take us straight into what's going on this week on the cover of the North Coast Journal?
Yeah, this week I wrote a cover story about traffic safety concerns, specifically pedestrian safety concerns on 4th and 5th Street in Eureka. It was one of these stories that I kind of stumbled upon, honestly. Obviously, pedestrian safety in Eureka is and has been an issue since I've been up here. We consistently have kind of one of the highest pedestrian collision rates in the state. So it's always something that's on our radar. But this particular stretch of 4th and 5th Street hadn't really, and it wasn't something that I was actively working on. And then I happened to be talking to a gentleman who uses a wheelchair to get around for another story that I was working on, this gentleman, Robert Lane. And I talked to him about what I was there to talk to him about, and he was like, "While I gotcha," and expressed a lot of concern about. He lives on 4th Street in the Bayview housing apartments, right up the street and across from the co-op, and talked to me about just how much trouble he was having getting across 4th and 5th Streets safely. And then so I started doing a little bit of work on contacting Caltrans and the Eureka Police Department to get some data to kind of quantify what was going on. And then while I was doing this, Tri-County Independent Living, which is the advocacy group for folks with mobility disabilities locally or mobility challenges, sent a letter to local officials kind of raising the alarm about the same issues. Their office is just kind of in the opposite block of Bayview Heights. So they see a lot of the same troubles with their clients coming to and from their office who have to cross 4th and 5th Street. And we're kind of writing to Caltrans asking for some immediate action. So it seemed like a ripe time to do a story and dove into reporting about it.
It's absolutely, you're right. I mean, I was here in the 90s and I've returned. And crossing in Eureka has always been like playing a game of Frogger, if any of the kids still remember that game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, something that came into just really sharp, focus for me in reporting the story and talking to Robert and the folks at Tri-County is that, I mean, I feel anxiety crossing 4th and 5th Street. Our office is in Old Town. I cross them both on foot frequently, not at lighted crosswalks. And I always feel, anxiety about going across, and especially if, one or two lanes of traffic stop, but the third hasn't yet, or there's not a car in that third lane. And I, putting myself in the position of somebody with a mobility challenge, and just how much more anxiety riddling that must be, and how much more at risk they really are. And so that was really kind of the focus of the reporting of the story.
And are more Caltran mitigating factors kind of coming into play in the future? Or?
Well, so Caltrans, I think understandably says that its focus has been in the areas with the highest pedestrian collision rates. And that's kind of that they're using that data to drive their improvement projects. And so their focus has really been on Broadway, which I talked to Colin Fisk with I forget the acronym, the Californians for Responsible Transportation Priorities, I think. I apologize if I got that wrong, Colin. But he has been really advocating for the safety of all non-motorized transportation in Humboldt for a bunch of years now. And, he deemed Broadway kind of the epicenter of the safety crisis, I think is how he put it when I talked to him. And so he said it's very understandable that Caltrans is working on improvements there first. The one improvement that definitely is coming down the pike is next year the city of Eureka has a bicycle corridor project on C Street. And as a part of that, they're going to include these lighted crossings of 4th and 5th where somebody can, push a button and there'll be these yellow flashing beacons kind of alerting motorists that somebody is, entering the crosswalk potentially, and they should slow down and be cautious. And so, that's definitely an improvement. And that's really the only kind of tangible thing coming. Caltrans says it is it has its safety investigations team that is looking into the issue to see if there's short-term fixes that could kind of improve the reality there. But I thought Colin Fisk's comments to me were really telling, where he said, you can add in bulb outs, which make the distance from that somebody has to cross less not as far. You could add in these kind of beacons that alert motorists. You can do other things marking the roadway that will cause, some kind of modicum of improvement. Because the issue really is you have 7 straight blocks without a street light, which causes people to naturally accelerate. And the layout of those 2 roads are 3 lanes each in one direction. And so just naturally motorists drive fast, probably faster than the posted speed limit. And it's going to be hard for a pedestrian to safely cross 3 lanes of traffic. And so he said, to really improve pedestrian safety and bicycle safety on these roads, you're really going to have to reduce it to 2 lanes. You're going to have to put other safety improvements. You're going to have to do kind of a massive redesign. And it doesn't seem like that's at all in the works. I would talk to a new shop owner, Crystal Woodbury Haynes, who owns 4th Street Mercantile. And she had kind of an interesting perspective because she just moved to the area from Petaluma and is just starting, the store that's supposed to open at the end of the month, and so she's just kind of been observing traffic issues on 4th Street while setting up her shop, and she said people need to stop calling them 4th and 5th Streets. It's a highway. It's a highway going through town. And I think that's, really telling.
That's kind of the elephant in the room, unfortunately. Eventually, I think the future problem is the fact that we have a business heavy area with a highway going through it and no bypass.
Absolutely. And I will say, Colin touched on this too, and he's with the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. So I want to make sure I get that right. But one of the things he pointed out too, Humboldt County has terrible accidents rates all throughout. And so, and some other people mentioned this too, there is a responsibility just incumbent on drivers to be safer and be more mindful. And I think that, it's one thing to kind of throw up your arms and say, well, it's 3 lanes through downtown. What can you do? But, individually we can do a lot to make sure we're driving the posted speed limit and we're being cautious and being alert that is an area with a lot of pedestrian crossings.
Thank you for that story, Thad. And I really encourage everybody to pick up the journal and read that complete article. Before we switch to the wonderful Jennifer, I wanted to get Thad to cover a little story that was news to all of us about something going on at the College of the Redwoods.
Yeah, our digital editor, Kimberly Weir, wrote a story about ghost students, which I didn't know was a thing, but ghost students at College of the Redwoods. This was a story we saw a story printed elsewhere in California about some challenges the California State University system was facing with these quote-unquote ghost students. And so we decided to hit up CR and see if this was a thing there. And it absolutely is. So for folks who don't know, there is a new cyber scam out there where people are enrolling in community colleges in an effort to kind of fraudulently obtain financial aid that then they presumably will use for things other than attending classes and housing. And this has been a really acute problem at CR. One of their admissions folks told us that at one point this year, 60% of their applications that they were receiving every day were fraudulent, were from quote unquote ghost students. And we talked to a professor there who said I think more than half of one of his enrolled classes ended up being these ghost students. And so not only is this a massive headache for CR admission staff who have to comb through, just kind of give all of these applications a different level of scrutiny to determine if they're even real people applying to the university or just the college. But it's also, a big problem that CR has some enrollment challenges and has to balance kind of how many courses it offers with how many students it thinks will enroll. And so, in the case of the political science class that the professor said about half the students were ghost students, they're likely turned away students from that course, real students who wanted to enroll, but the course was full, and so they couldn't. And by the time they purge out the 15 or so ghost students, those other students have gone on and made other plans, and so it's just really disruptive to both real students' efforts to get an education, but then also just the operations of the college.
Definitely not the spooky season story we were hoping for.
No, there's a couple Spectre references in the story that are a little bit fun, but not spooky and fun at all, really.
Definitely not fun. And
disappointing.
It is. It's just no matter what, somebody will find a way to pull a scam. It's very disheartening indeed.
Yeah. A little bit entertaining was the professor Ryan Emenaker said that he also has real students who are using like ChatGPT and AI to like write papers for them, and so he's had a real hard time trying to decipher who are the actual ghost students and who are just real students using using technology to try to skate by.
Oh, yeah, that's unfortunate.
Hard times out there for professors.
Yeah, indeed. And for admissions.
Yes.
Any final thoughts before we shift gears?
No, just that I think Kim did a really thorough job kind of exploring, localizing what's really a statewide story and showing its local impact. So I'd encourage folks to pick it up and check it out.
Absolutely. Well, let's shift over and see what's happening on the arts and features beat with Jennifer.
Okay.
What do you have for us?
Okay, which do you want first? Do you want art or food first?
I really appreciated the art this week as well, but of course, it's lunchtime, so I want to talk about food first.
Okay, food and drink, because this week we have in the What's Good column, which is usually a compilation of things that we have online, like little stories about food, whether it's something, as the title implies, something that is good to eat, or something new that's happening on the restaurant scene. So, or in this case, the restaurant and brewery scene. I will start at the end, which is with Pale Moon Brewing Company, which is opening up over, do you know where like the Uniontown Shopping Center is? I never know the names of shopping centers until...
I don't either. I had to look it up.
Yeah.
I think everybody refers to it as the Safeway Shopping Center in Arcata. So.
Yes, exactly. And or for me, it's the Bencherong Thai place. So anyway, this fella, Jeff Finn, was originally a mechanic over at the Arcata Community Pool. And I think there is something to be said for people who are like mechanics, engineers, people who figure out how stuff works. They are in danger of becoming home brewers. Because I meet a lot of home brewers who are like, yeah, I like to tinker, because, some of that element is in there. And so he was an avid home brewer, and then a friend tipped him off to a job at a brewery, and he took that, and he was first on the bottling line and then worked his way up to brewer. He spent a couple years at Eel River Brewing, and then like, what did he say? Like, was it 8 years at Lost Coast Brewery? And little by little, on top of his home brewing skills, he picked up a lot of information and tips from what he calls the very smart people working in the breweries. And he just opened his own place. You have heard of a microbrewery, which does like, somewhere being like, I think it's like a 15,000 barrels or less a year. His is a nano brewery, teeny tiny. So he's probably making, just a few thousand barrels a year. Although the year isn't out yet. He just opened up and had a soft opening night, and lots of people came. He was also very excited about the fact that lots of brewery people came. So people who you would think would be like plotting his demise, but in fact, they came to cheer on and drink beer. The other thing that I've learned over the years of writing about breweries is that brewery people just love beer. So
It is true.
yeah, you get into brewing the way that like we were saying, like vets get into, and vets and vet techs get into the business because they love animals. You get into brewing because you love beer.
You love
So
it.
yeah, and so not every profession is like that. So anyway, all these people came. Apparently, there was a drinking song at one point that the entire bar was invited to jump in on, but he's very excited about it, and they're going to have like 5 beers on tap at a time, and there'll be a couple of rotating seasonal things that he'll change out every month or so, but he has guaranteed to always have a hoppy one and a malty one.
Excellent.
Which to my mind is like, simplified choices, please, because when I go with friends to some place that has like a wild array of taps, it is exhausting. I am halfway through my appetizer and they are still trying to figure out which Pilsner they're having because there's 16. Anyway, so that'll be a fun thing to check out. Pale Moon, like I said, it's open now, and he's going to be open like Friday, Saturday, Sundays, but is looking to open in the future like Thursday and Wednesday, but we'll see. It'll take time to kind of figure out the system, how much he needs, because as he told me, he doesn't want people to come and get disappointed that the brew that they want is not available. So
I am always excited for a new brewery in town. So definitely go check it out. Go support it.
I will have to tap you for future stuff because I am not a beer person.
Bring me along.
Yes, I always need somebody to come with me and drink beer for me.
I will bring you to the wine, to the vineyard openings. We can trade that off.
I'm telling you, I don't drink. So
oh, okay.
I have to have lots of people with me who are willing to drink for me. And I just filled my email box, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Okay. Anyway, so another thing that is opening not too far away from that, also in Arcata, is the Carriage House. So the Carriage House restaurant, perhaps you remember where Robert Goodman Winery was?
Yes.
Which later became Griffin?
Yes.
And is now going to be the Carriage House. Yeah, starting with a soft opening at the end of the month and then opening for good a few days later, it sounds like. This is going to be the new chef home of Rochelle Burgess, who we've written about before because she was doing these kind of interesting pop-ups around town. And she was doing like pop-up dinners at like Mad River and Mad River Brewing Company and other places. But it's interesting. She was not hoping to do another restaurant gig after working at Angelina Inn for a while. That gig ended really abruptly. And not everybody wants to be at the whim of, the restaurant owner. The chef is, not always the owner. And so she was looking to just keep working for herself, doing personal chef work, maybe a pop-up here and there. But in fact, she got in touch with a restaurant owner that she really jived with, and that is Shannon Yodowitz. And I love this part. When they met, they talked about, the kind of food they are thinking of, what the restaurant vision is, and then they did a cook test. And I love this idea. One of the items was something that Rochelle from her imagination and kind of to show off what she's interested in doing. And one of the items was Shannon's request. And the thing that Rochelle wanted to do was an udon noodle, which is a thick white Japanese noodle, not to be confused with ramen. Look in my eyes, not to be confused with ramen, people running restaurants in Humboldt County. And anyway, this udon noodle is treated not in a Japanese dish, but with like lemon butter and fennel and yumminess like that. So, her very eclectic style. And the test dish that was Shannon's request, which is a kind of a skills test, was a BLT. Which I was like, for a second, I was like, well, that sounds simple, but then it's not, is it? How many times have you been disappointed by a BLT not being exactly the way you like it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't even know what Thad does. He's anti-mayonnaise.
Oh, I love BLTs, just no mayo.
And mine's fake bacon, so.
Right? I'm just saying, there are variations. So anyway, she did that in their kitchen, and then once they struck their deal, it was off to the races. And the restaurant's menu is very cool. And it is working around a couple of restrictions. One being that the kitchen is 100 square feet. It's 100 square feet, which the chef Burgess is going to share with one other staffer. So everything that's made has to be something you can bang out in a short time with two people in a tiny kitchen with no stove hood. No stove hood means, according to county regulations, that you cannot be making grease papers. They have an oven that has its internal stove hood, like that mechanism to get the steam and smoke and everything out. But everything has to be done with those restrictions. And the menu, when you look at it, you're like, how is this? I can't even, but it has a lot of cool stuff. And one thing that is really speaking to me is the dirty martini shrimp, which is made with, among other things, a dehydrated, cast off gin mash from Jewel Distillery, which is very low waste and very fun. The mash, by the way, is the stuff that if you haven't, made gin in your bathtub at home, the mash is the kind of botanical, herby stuff that is going to be distilled, right? They pull all the essences out of it, and then the leftover solids and whatnot get cast off. But none of that is alcoholic yet, but it has the same fragrance that gin might have. And so that gets turned into a seasoning for the shrimp, which will have like gin vibes, but no actual gin. And then, of course, a big old olive and a twist of lemon. And
I thought that was amazing that they were incorporating that to, again, reduce food waste. What an awesome idea.
Right. And it's a very, as Rochelle describes it, produce forward menu. And, Humboldt County has all this great produce, and she's going to take full advantage of that. I know everybody says we use seasonal, local vegetables, but she's trying to do something a little bit different with those seasonal items and with those local items. Like I remember having a conversation with her a long time ago when she was very excited about the availability of green strawberries and everything that can be done with them. So I think it's going to be really fun.
Well, thanks for all of that information, Jennifer. I encourage everybody to not only support those local businesses, but of course, pick up the North Coast Journal, read the calendar, check out what you can do this weekend. And of course, the current edition is available at the newsstands now. And you can find it 24/7, 365 at northcoastjournal.com. We ran out of time, but also pick up the article. There's a great article that we didn't get to touch on with Thad going back over from a story before about the FEMA efforts in Rio Dell. So definitely pick that up and get in touch. My name is Tanya. Thanks for listening. And as always, staying informed and supporting our community here on the North Coast. Thank you, Thad. Thank you, Jennifer.